Ralston, president of the Urban Concerns, a Jersey City grassroots organization, that's scheduled to hold a vigil in the Hub at Martin Luther King Jr. Drive Friday, I believe at 6 p.m., to protest the all of this brutality that's really been recorded and videotaped so that everybody can see it now, and also to talk a bit about a case we have in Jersey City where a man was shot 5 months ago, and we're still trying to find out what happened. We know he was shot. We know that he was shot by two cops who were chasing him in hot pursuit, but we don't know what happened beyond that. The prosecutor embargoed everything, including the police filing of a report on that, which is supposedly public information. So everybody, including the dead man's family, are trying to find out what happened, and we don't know. And that was in June. It is now essentially almost the middle of December, and we still don't know. So we want to find out if there's some way that we can shake this information loose. Now, we even have something else to report, because in light of these recent grand jury no-bill decisions regarding Garner and Mike Brown and so many others in police brutality cases, the same thing happened to the gentleman who was shot in a Walmart. They had a grand jury convened on him, and they found him, the police, to be not guilty of committing any crime. A family will be gathering across the street from the Lowe's Theater on December the 20th when the Jersey City Mayor, Stephen Fulop, holds his free Christmas concert at the landmark Lowe's Theater in Gerald Square. And this family is asking, essentially, that we boycott Christmas.
Yes.
They want if you want to bring a toy, you can bring it to them as opposed to handling this some other way. And the toy should be gift wrapped with the name of one of the victims of police brutality on it to donate to the concert and show your concerns against police brutality.
And the name of that protest is Hands Up, Don't Celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, it says keep your hands out of your pockets and purses. Profit should not be made off of a system that does not value black life. Avoid the upcoming commercial Christmas. No work, no school, no business as usual. Hands up, don't celebrate Christmas. Black Lives Matter. Hashtag shut down. Hashtag we will not be silent. Hashtag all lives matter. The interesting thing about what's happened here, and I want to tell you before I go any further because I haven't said it, but my co-host Tina Bland is here. I really feel like I don't know if I can do this show anymore without her.
It's a good team.
Yes, it is. And we have a lot to talk about. There's a national march against police violence Saturday, December 13th. Buses will leave from Harlem, Brooklyn, and Queens. There is no cost to ride an NAACP bus. Reserve your seat by filling out the attached form and emailing it to naacp@aol.com. Join the families of Mike Brown, Eric Garner, and Aki Gurley, who was the young man shot in a stairwell in our housing projects in New York for no reason that anybody can find.
None.
Well, there was no light. They're blaming the housing authority for not having a light.
I reiterate, no reason.
No reason.
One more hot off the press. This is for Jersey City.
You read that one.
Okay. And there will also be a free bus leaving from Hoboken and Jersey City from the NAACP's president of the Hoboken branch, Gene Drayton.
Gene Drayton.
It will be leaving from West Side and well, let me give you the information. If you tag on to blandinc3@aol.com, I can funnel that information to you because there are only 12 seats left. And he has been very clear. There will be no smoking or drugs on his bus.
And that's coming from a former police officer, so
And then the national
African American police
That's
officer.
right.
you know,
And
so.
then the National Action Network also has buses leaving from Jersey City. Their buses are not full. And the name of this is Get on the Bus. That's the name of the movement. Get on the Bus. It is
Didn't
for
we heard that before?
that it was
The
a
Spike Lee
movie. That's
Get on the
right.
Bus?
Get on the bus because the buses are going to Washington this Saturday. They are leaving around 3 a.m.
That's
for-
about right.
That's so. And you will contact Carol Oliver Fair. Do you have that information?
On Carol,
Yes, because those buses have a fee because these buses are not free.
I think the fee is $54. If you wish to ride these buses, and I don't have the information as to when on Carol on that National Action Network, Jersey City chapter of the National Action Network, but we do. I can tell you that we're expecting a phone call from an attorney who is working with the National Action Network in Jersey City concerning the trial of that young man I told you about, Levon King, who was shot in June and we still don't know anything about. And when he comes on the line, he may be able to give us even more information. We expect him to call in about 20 minutes.
And those buses for National Action Network are leaving from the Jersey City hub this Saturday, December 13th. The cost, I think, is between $50 and $55. It is merely the cost of the bus. Those buses are not full. It is of paramount importance that we have a great presence in Washington. I will be going.
Great. I'd like to go. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I'm going to try. But that's a hard thing for me to do.
Well, I'm putting on my walking shoes for you.
Right, because that's my problem. Walking is not something I've been told I need to do a lot of. So,
So you pass the mantle on to at least 6 other people. Let's get out there. Let's march.
That's right.
Let's have a great presence. Let's do what they asked and get on the buses this Saturday.
now all of this that the guests we have tonight and this whole turmoil that's going on in this country now is extremely interesting because young people have just organized themselves and they just went out and did it.
Thank you, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter.
Well, yes, because what we didn't have back in the good old days of the civil rights movement and the whole issue we had with organizing the SCLC and the NAACP was that they didn't have that kind of social media.
Exactly.
But you know what is very interesting here is when they locked up everybody they could in Alabama, and the SCLC people, Young and Reverend Young and the rest of the people around Martin Luther King went to talk to the children who responded.
Yes.
And I think they probably were more effective on getting something done because the firemen turned their hoses on those kids and literally ripped some of their clothes off with the force of the water. But for America to watch a bunch of kids get wiped out like that by water, it turned the whole movement into another thing, into another direction. And I believe it, just like what is happening now, where you have a series of brutality issues where they shoot a man in a Walmart with a toy gun, a toy BB gun, or like they say today, pellet gun. We call them BB guns. And incidentally, most people don't know, but that shooting, they also convened a grand jury that found the cops involved in that as not guilty.
I am so surprised.
Then, of course, you had the young man who was shot in Cleveland, Tamar. What is his name?
It's on here too.
Yeah, Tamar. He was shot by police. We don't know what's going to happen there because they haven't convened a grand jury. But so far, grand juries haven't proven to be very good at finding convictions for these cops, even though it takes them 8 or 9 months to convene a jury. And tonight we're going to explore all of these questions with our guests. who are really, I mean, we have Juan Cartagena, who is a distinguished jurist. He's worked as a judge in Hoboken. He runs Latino Justice. He wrote a piece in the Huffington Post. I sat down to scan it because I didn't know about that Huffington Post story, and I couldn't stop reading it. I really couldn't. I mean, it is really, he did a great job. But then I know Juan, a Dartmouth trained lawyer. He's he knows what he's doing. So.
I want to mention to you, we're talking about the media and how young people are able to fly through and get these information so they know where to go instantly. I put an ad up announcing what had happened and the national and the state NAACP's position on it. In less than 24 hours, 3,550 people saw it.
Well, that tells you a couple of things. One, there may have been apathy before all of this happened. At least we were always bemoaning what we thought was apathy. But there isn't any anymore. And there are even other countries. This thing has gone national.
That's right, international.
There are people in other countries who are now demonstrating and saying, hands up, my hands are up. Or I can't breathe, I can't breathe.
Or Black Lives Matter.
And, I mean, George Bush, the former president of the United States, even weighed in on this. And nobody's ever called him a flaming liberal. And he said, I don't even understand.
Right.
How they came out with that decision.
It was a wonderful piece, though, that he did.
Well, it was Charles Krauthammer, who was extremely conservative, one of these guys who you can almost count on being on Fox News every night. He said this is crazy. Glenn Beck,
yes,
Mr. Right Wing himself, said, he was really eloquent about how he felt. But you know what, I have to say this. These sorts of things have been happening in the black community and sometimes in the white community for years, for decades, for centuries. But there was no cell phone to record it.
And now you're going to tell me, even though a cell phone did record it and we actually saw it, that the body camera will make a difference. Please help me with that.
Well, the prosecutors are saying to us essentially, are you going to believe what I say or your lying eyes? And I wrote that, and then after I wrote it, everybody else not that they took it from me, but everybody was saying the same thing because it was clear to the whole world this was wrong. And there just is no excuse for this. So, in a way, I mean, not in a way, I am really sorry for the families of these victims or dead people who found themselves, at the wrong end of a police action.
But let's be sorry enough to do something.
But I was going to say,
any way you can do something, do it.
Yes. What it has triggered across the United States and throughout the world. I mean, when you have LeVon James,
right, correct,
wearing a shirt saying a sweatshirt saying "I can't breathe, I can't breathe," when you have football players, I think it was the St. Louis Rams that came out, and I'll tell you what I found interesting. The police got upset with them, and they called the NFL, and the NFL said, "We're not going to chastise anybody.
No
here."
penalization. But I just want to say, I hope people really realize when you finish your marching and your protesting, you better learn how to vote.
Yes. If we know anything about Ferguson, there seemed to be some apathy there. We'll see if it really disappeared because sometimes you hear a lot of stuff, but the churn goes. But
right.
It's a little harder to get down to getting people to actually respond and act.
But your vote matters, and that's why we have the forums and the debates. This is how change occurs. Your vote. Why are we marching to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue?
Well, yes, we're marching to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue because if there's any place where decisions get made, it's there. We're about to go on a break. When we come back, all our guests will be here.
Get ready.
Get ready. And get ready to call us also. You can call us at
714-888-7444.
And give us your opinion whether you found something here that you agree with or disagree with.
Because your opinion counts.
Right. We're out. We'll be right back.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a great opportunity. If you have an event, product, service, talent, or something important to say, now is your chance. You can have your very own radio show. Whether you're just starting out or a veteran looking for a professional platform to enhance your presentation and following, the GoPro Radio Network is the premier place to cultivate and share new and exciting content. We can help you grow your audience and keep it growing long after your first broadcast. Now you have a voice. Call 212-696-8562 or visit www.goproradio.com and you'll be amazed at how easy and affordable it is to have your very own professional radio show on the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head. The views and opinions expressed on GoPro Radio Network shows are solely those of the speakers and are not necessarily the views or opinions of GoPro Radio Network, Inc. or its affiliates. These broadcasts are provided on the understanding that they do not constitute professional advice or services. Individuals who speak on these broadcasts express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusions. GoPro Radio Networks and its affiliates do not necessarily endorse or oppose any particular opinion or conclusion discussed in these broadcasts. You may not edit or modify or redistribute these broadcasts in any way without the express permission from GoPro Radio, LLC. GoPro Radio assumes no liability for any of your activities in connection with our broadcast or for your use of these broadcasts in connection with your website, computer, smartphone, tablet, iPad, or future listening devices. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
We are an amazing people, rooted in Africa, the cradle of human civilization. Descendant of the awesome men and women who made a way out of no way. People steeped in the values of truth, justice, respect, harmony, balance, reciprocity, and order. But 400 years of enslavement, Jim Crow, and racism, fueled by the lie of black inferiority, have taken their toll. The result? Too much pain, too much hurt, too much loss. We owe our ancestors, ourselves, and our children so much more than this. Join the movement for emotional emancipation, healing, and wellness for Black people. Go to communityhealingnet.org and take the pledge to defy the lie and embrace the truth. That's communityhealingnet.org. Our children and our ancestors are waiting.
The views and opinions expressed on GoPro Radio Network shows are solely those of the speakers and are not necessarily the views or opinions of GoPro Radio Network, Inc. or its affiliates. These broadcasts are provided on the understanding that they do not constitute professional advice or services. Individuals who speak on these broadcasts express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusions. GoPro Radio Networks and its affiliates do not necessarily endorse or oppose any particular opinion or conclusion discussed in these broadcasts. You may not edit or modify or redistribute these broadcasts in any way without the express permission from GoPro Radio, LLC. GoPro Radio assumes no liability for any of your activities in connection with our broadcast or for your use of these broadcasts in connection with your website, computer, smartphone, tablet, iPad, or future listening devices. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head. You're listening.
All right, we're back at the Earl Morgan Hour.
And good evening
Good
again.
evening, everyone. We have a full house here. Some old friends are here.
Hot
and some
topic.
new friends. We have State Senator Sandra Cunningham. I don't want to get too familiar here.
All right.
Who is an old friend of mine. We spent a lot of New Year's Eves together.
Mm-hmm.
We also have Bruce Alston, who have of Urban Concerns. His organization is staging a vigil this Friday at 6 p.m.
Yes.
at the Hub in Jersey City about these issues and some others will be speaking about the young man, the King family, and their problems, I believe. I want to talk to you about that, Juan, because I'm glad you're here.
Of course.
I got a legal question that is just eating me up. But let's start with this. Your recommendations in your Huffington Post piece, and I recommend that piece to everyone. It was eloquent, to the point, and it made recommendations that seem so practical and logical. I'd like to explore that a bit before we go any further.
Sure.
You were saying that we need to get rid of the grand jury system altogether, go to something else. Matter of fact, maybe I don't know if you were reading his mind, he was reading yours, but the state attorney in New York City seems to have
Just said that the other day. That's true.
Seems to agree with you. There's some consensus in this country about this, and there were some other things that you had recommended. Can you give us a
Sure, a very quick summary.
on it?
Basically, on the day after the decision by the grand jury in the Eric Garner case came down, it became evident to me, and this is nothing new, really. What
No.
I'm saying is nothing new. We're talking about decades and decades and decades of black and
Centuries.
brown people being killed at the hands of police without justification. That being said, the first point that I want to raise is the obvious point, and that is that a grand jury controlled by the same local prosecutor that depends on the same police force, who has what I call the mission alignment every day of the week. They work together on the same mission. Raises serious conflict of interest problems. It's very difficult to understand how anybody who is that cozy and works and relies on the cooperation of police.
They're colleagues.
They're colleagues, and that has to be separated. Second, the transparency. The issue that a grand jury, by definition, is secret, that we never know what's said, that we, despite the fact of what we heard and read and in Ferguson, that's unique to Missouri law. In places like New York, the most they gave out for information was the number of witnesses and the number of days. It doesn't make any sense. The point is that transparency does nothing to build confidence in the system, especially in 2014 when so many people are being killed cumulatively over so much time.
And we have it on record now.
That's right. So my
That's
recommendation was to get rid of it and
cool.
get rid of the grand jury secrecy program, and to deal with an open hearing in front of a judge for the same reason, probable cause by a special prosecutor, not the local prosecutor.
We have to interrupt for a minute because we have a caller. Caller, you're on the line. You're on the air.
Thank you, caller. What is your question, comment, or concern tonight?
Oh, yes, this is Nathaniel.
This is the lawyer.
Oh, yes, this is the lawyer
How are you?
that's working with the National
Hi.
Action Network. How are you this evening, Mr.
Well, how you doing?
Nathaniel? Yes, we're calling because we have a lot of people in the room, but we would like to get some idea of what it is that the National Action Network's position is on the murder of this young man, LaVon King, who was shot by police 5 months ago. And the question I want to ask you and one, I've got two lawyers here tonight. Man, that's great. Because the prosecutor scooped up all the information. Now, my understanding of a police report, and this either one of the jurists here can correct me on this, but a police incident report is public information and anyone can see it. That's
Sure.
how reporters
Well-
operate. How is it that the prosecutor in Hudson County took that and no one has ever seen it?
This is Nathaniel Davis, the attorney
Yes.
for the family of LeBron King. And basically, at this point in time, the prosecutor is still investigating the matter. And that's the procedure. And unlike in different states, in New Jersey, the prosecutor takes over. They do not allow the police department to investigate the case. So the prosecutor has taken over the case, and they're investigating, sending out their investigators to take all the statements from the witnesses, gather all the evidence, and they'll make a decision as to how to proceed once all these facts are taken in. I've been told that they have not finished the investigation, and that until they finish the investigation, nothing will be released to the public.
Well, let me say this to you and to Juan. I was a reporter for 32 years in this town. Actually, 35 or 36 years. I worked for the Dispatch, which was a daily newspaper, before I went to the Jersey Journal, which was a daily. I worked police and I worked the courts. I watched how cops got an indictment. They indict. It's almost like a assembly line. They just run them through and get them. The other thing is everything you read in the papers about what we call the police beat comes from incident reports. Reporters go and gather and read and take notes from in the precinct. Why is that? Because that is public information. All of that is public information. How is it that when it's a police shooting a person, I've never even in this town heard of that. We were able to get, until all my time as a reporter, we could get that information. All of a sudden it stopped. Did they pass a new law? Are they just making water flow uphill like they always often do in Hudson County? I mean, how could he do this? Either one of you guys, school me on the law here, because I maybe have a misreading of it, but I thought that blotter was by court order public information. Is that true or not?
It should be public information. I'm unaware of any new law that's changed
but
it.
at this point, it is not. And a lot of criminal records and a lot of criminal police reports are not up for review, especially if they're pending cases, because people have privacy rights in the state of New Jersey. And so if the problem is if you release a report and it gets out to the public and that person his reputation is smeared, you have a lawsuit on your hands. So I think the police have taken a position where if a case is under investigation, they will not release any reports to the public.
But every case is under investigation.
Reports. Of course, there'll always be, if the police want to get a story out, they will always provide leaks to the press.
No, it wasn't a leak. We went and got the actual
report.
We were able to go get. You read any newspaper, there's a crime beat. Mm-hmm. Those are crime stories. Every one of those will be investigated because you're innocent till found guilty. So how is it that if you're just Joe Schmo, your police report we are now not releasing the names of victims anymore. I think that was something the papers intended to did it on their own, because I don't think there's a law against that. But when it's the police involved, there would be no police beat if that's what they said. Well, you might smear somebody's reputation. We have pictures of people in front of the judicial processing court on their way to being indicted. We have their image. This is crazy. I understand how Hudson County is. I was born here. So I know that the laws of man and nature don't always apply here. But
exactly.
But this is one that's really, I don't get this. Plus, I worked in North Bergen where a woman sued because they were refusing to show her the blotter. And she won. They had to show it to her. I guess North Bergen is different than Jersey City, Bayonne, East Newark, or whatever.
Well, it should be. It should
Yeah.
be. I mean, you're right.
So I'm concerned about that. And the poor family of this dead man has no idea what happened, nor do we. And it's 5 months later. That's crazy.
And they're still investigating. I know I had met with the the public safety director of Jersey City the other day with the National Action Network, and even he has not. He explained that he doesn't even have any information regarding investigations, and just saying that it's ongoing.
No, you can't. You can't blame the police for this one, because the prosecutor came and took it, and he has the jurisdiction here in that case. But
that is the procedure.
But he hasn't. But unless we made him a king, he can't just do that.
And an independent investigation that takes place, even though we know it's not really independent.
Well, I was going to say there is no independent. They're all working for the government.
Well, it has to be the appearance of independence.
You mean the appearance? What is the word? The term appearance of impropriety?
Right. Avoid the appearance.
Right, avoiding the appearance. All right. Please stay with us for a minute. I want to ask
Yes.
my state senator here to tell her that we're going to be talking to her when we come back from this break about some of the how she sees this thing and some of the some things she's been doing built around this case. Just stay there. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a great opportunity. If you have an event, product, service, talent, or something important to say, now is your chance. You can have your very own radio show. Whether you're just starting out or a veteran looking for a professional platform to enhance your presentation and following, the GoPro Radio Network is the premier place to cultivate and share new and exciting content. We can help you grow your audience and keep it growing long after your first broadcast. Now you have a voice. Call 212-696-8562 or visit www.goproradio.com and you'll be amazed at how easy and affordable it is to have your very own professional radio show on the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
We are an amazing people, rooted in Africa, the cradle of human civilization. Descendant of the awesome men and women who made a way out of no way. People steeped in the values of truth, justice, respect, harmony, balance, reciprocity, and order. But 400 years of enslavement, Jim Crow, and racism, fueled by the lie of black inferiority, have taken their toll. The result? Too much pain, too much hurt, too much loss. We owe our ancestors, ourselves, and our children so much more than this. Join the movement for emotional emancipation, healing, and wellness for Black people. Go to communityhealingnet.org and take the pledge to defy the lie and embrace the truth. That's communityhealingnet.org. Our children and our ancestors are waiting.
You better know it.
You know, right?
All right, we're back with the Earl Morgan Hour. I'm your host, Earl Morgan, with my co-pilot, Tina Bland.
Good evening. Hot show, hot topic.
And I have in the studio tonight Juan Cartagena, an old friend, and an even older friend, Sandy Cunningham.
He doesn't mean that years wise.
Well,
No.
I just mean we have a lot of history.
I know, I'm joking.
I mean a lot of history. And I have Bruce Alston, who I don't have as much history in, but he's making some history here. I suspect I will hear a lot more from him in the future. But we're here discussing the situation that everybody else is discussing. How
Situations.
well, it's a situation. How police can go to grand juries and be found not guilty when we've all seen them do something that was so crazy. They just shoot people and they say, well, you know, he had it coming or whatever.
Sure.
So, Sandy, tell me, I know you had a few meetings about this yourself.
Sure. This is one of the issues that I've been really concerned about recently. You know, we recently did bail reform and started looking at other things in the criminal justice system that needs to be looked at.
You're talking about in the state
again.
government.
In state government. But with the latest things that's been happening, the question begs, what are we doing about grand jury reform? It's my understanding there's only, and Juan is really an expert on this, 2 countries that still use grand jury, the United States and Ireland. And I don't know if we're prepared to abandon it completely, but we definitely need to reform it. And when you were talking about it earlier, what people don't realize, when you go to the grand jury, everything is one-sided.
Yes.
You know, it's the prosecutor's or the DA's position. Even your lawyer does not have the evidence that they're going to use against you.
He doesn't get that until it's bound for trial.
Exactly.
And then he can get it through discovery.
Exactly. So, I mean, the way the system is set up now, you're only going to get what you put into it, and the people putting into it are the prosecutors or the DA. And these people are getting free. I mean, people who have committed crimes are walking because of their relationships.
Well, there's this famous saying that a prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich. Now, that wasn't something some black guy said.
No,
That was Judge Wachner,
That's right.
if you remember, who was a Superior Court judge in
Right.
New York State, who made that statement.
Right.
So they can get an indictment except if you wearing a blue suit with a badge.
Right.
That seems to be a problem.
That's it. So I recently had a meeting with the Institute of Social Justice in Newark because I've worked with them on various kinds of legal issues. And, we're looking at what can be done and what national, federal legislators we need to get into a room and start talking about this, because this is a real issue now. And as you said, this is an issue that isn't dying, it's growing.
No.
And as it grows and as attention is kept on it, it will help to make these changes possible.
Bruce, you're contemplating, you're scheduled to do a vigil, really. Tell us a little bit about what triggered that and what you'll be doing at 6 p.m. on Friday in the Hub.
And how people can get involved.
What really triggered it was it's just the recent events in urban America, period. I mean, what amazes me right now, it's not just what happened in Ferguson. It's not what just happened with LeVon King. It's not what's happened in New York. This has been an ongoing thing for years now. I mean, let's face facts. Hurt people hurt. Right now, black community, black, brown, we're hurting people right now. And let's face facts. We've never trusted the police. So what we're trying to do now is to try to say to the police officers, hey, you know what? Let's meet as police and community on this day. Let's form some type of unity, because right now it's not an issue between the police and the community. It's an issue about our legal system more than anything, because these cops believe what they're doing is legal.
Well, they go to the grand jury and
exactly well,
6 months later,
and that's a problem. So we're hoping Tuesday we can get as many people out that we can. Right? I mean, Friday, it was originally scheduled for Tuesday. We can get many people out to have a vigil to promote unity, but also to say, where do we go from here? I mean, and that is I heard Ms. Bland saying earlier, we have to come out and vote. We have to do things to change what the grand jury system is. And the one thing I do see is, as I tell everybody, is the biggest misconception is this, though, is that, number one, when a police shooting occurs, it just seems to me that automatically the Department of Homeland Security should come in and take over those type of cases.
The Homeland Security.
Homeland Security should come in and take over those types of cases. It just makes sense. It seems that when you're saying that there's a close relationship between the prosecutors and the police department, let a federal agency come in that are not dealing with these people on a daily basis. Let it fall at the Department of Homeland Security and let them assign a special prosecutor to police shootings.
Well, I understand it's usually the Justice Department that comes in on many of these cases. Not all, but some.
The Justice Department has jurisdiction to prosecute for violation of civil rights, whether or not the person is indicted, whether or not the person is acquitted. They can always come in and bring their own investigation and their own prosecutions. So that's another layer, really, of protection for individuals who suffer from bodily harm or death at the hands of police.
Nathaniel, are you still there with us?
I'm here.
Okay, let me ask you this: you obviously met with the family of Mr. King. What are they? What's their demeanor? How do they feel about this? What's going on with them? I mean, it just.
I mean, the family is very, very distraught at this point. I mean, they lost a loved one. They lost a person that they cared deeply for. It was a young man in his early 20s whose life was taken away by, I believe, an inexperienced police officer who really was fearful and didn't know what they were doing at the time. You know, I called the question. Like I said, I don't have any documents in my hand to review, but I've had on enough of these cases to realize I believe there might be an issue with the training that the police officer underwent, which might have caused a problem.
Well, you know, we recently heard about what happened with the young man, and I do mean young, 12 years old, and they said, when they reported it back to the dispatcher, they said, we have a man down here, possibly 20. I saw him walking along. Either he was a kid or a midget.
But that's the point.
I mean, how could you
But that's the point, Earl. That's not a young man. That's a child.
Yes.
And we need to be
Yeah,
clear.
talk about children.
That's right. That's a
children.
child.
And they shot him, and we saw the video. The man, now we know the cop had all kinds of problems before he
Exactly.
was. Okay. And nothing. They let him on the force, even though he had a bad recommendation from another police department. The result is
I
he's a
like-
dead 12-year-old kid.
Yeah, Mr. Morgan, I'd like to just say that in a lot of these times with the police shootings, I think sometimes if there's a question, we need to bring in a special prosecutor. I'm not sure if you touched on that
We
previously.
did. Yes, we
But
did.
that is something. I think that is something we independent reviews, not with a prosecutor who has to work hand in hand with the police on a regular basis, but with an independent prosecutor who can look at these cases with fresh eyes that have no connections with the police department. And I think that's what we need. And
Right.
also, we also need people in the minority community to become police officers.
True.
That way,
True.
Yes.
we understand we have a voice within the police departments.
Well, there's another aspect of this I'd like to explore with my guests here, and that's the response to this in another way. Bill Breaker, Jersey City NACP president, has been, he's been pounding away at the idea of neighborhood and community policing, and some people resist that. They say that's outmoded, and I always say, well, okay, what's your idea then? Because what we're doing now isn't working.
Not working.
So they don't seem to have another answer. The President of the United States, 3 days ago, said he's appropriating, nearly $50 million for community policing and cameras.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask all of you what you thought of that idea as a way of confronting or at least handling this issue right now. Start with you, Bruce, and then we'll go back to.
My thing is that community policing. First of all, $50 million is not enough money. If it's
Absolutely.
$50 million, it's not enough money. But as far as I've heard President Breaker from the NAACP speak about this so many times. It's community policing has to be more than just that cop's name on the corner. Community policing, there has to be programs that's going to be into the school system that lets these children know how you approach a police officer. Also, it can't be one-sided now. It can't be just how the police officer approaches us. Real community policing is going to have to come from both ends of the spectrum, because we might not want to admit it though, but some of our young African American people and people of color, we're very disrespectful towards the police. We're very disrespectful towards them because of our history with them. So it's going to take a lot more than just community policing.
Hopefully, though, that disrespect doesn't end up with them pulling a gun and killing you.
Exactly. It shouldn't be that way.
I mean, what can they, that whatever they say doesn't have the same effect as bullets.
It doesn't excuse it.
Sandy, what do you think about that?
I agree a little bit with what Bruce is saying. I think that it does incorporate or need to incorporate some sort of education and training program so that children, once again, understand if you have an issue, you can go to the police. But the most important part of that is in police work is developing relationships. So community policing means developing relationships with the people on the corner, the businessman. That's how you develop a trust so that if something goes wrong, that you can get information, and that's vital. Also, if we want to educate our children to believe, once again, that the cops are there to help them and there's a way of dealing with them, and the cops need to understand that there's a way of dealing with children, you can do that if this is a cop who was walking the beat, who has developed a relationship with Mr. Joe or Miss Ann or whoever along the way, and they understand a little bit about each other. If you've never seen this policeman before, until something happens, is not the time to try to bring people together.
Yeah.
So I think it's an ongoing effort and it needs to begin with
All
that.
right, everybody stay where you are. Stick there. Don't go nowhere. We'll be back for a final segment of this program. As usual, we don't have enough time.
I wonder why.
But we'll be right back.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head. Join Gail Walker, Larry Ham, Ramsey Clark, and renowned artist and songwriter David Mell and many others for a historic citywide meeting in solidarity with African communities and healthcare workers. If you want to fight Ebola, fight stigma, and fight racism, meet us at the historic National Black Theater in Harlem on Tuesday, December 9th at 6:30 p.m. The National Black Theater in Harlem is located 2031 5th Avenue at 125th Street. We say healthcare is a human right. Money to fight Ebola, not endless wars. To endorse, volunteer, donate, or purchase tickets, contact the International Action Center at 212-633-6646. That's 212-633-6646. Or visit us online at iacenter.org. That's iacenter.org.
We are an amazing people, rooted in Africa, the cradle of human civilization. Descendant of the awesome men and women who made a way out of no way. People steeped in the values of truth, justice, respect, harmony, balance, reciprocity, and order. But 400 years of enslavement, Jim Crow, and racism, fueled by the lie of black inferiority, have taken their toll. The result? Too much pain, too much hurt, too much loss. We owe our ancestors, ourselves, and our children so much more than this. Join the movement for emotional emancipation, healing, and wellness for Black people. Go to communityhealingnet.org and take the pledge to defy the lie and embrace the truth. That's communityhealingnet.org. Our children and our ancestors are waiting.
Welcome back, studio audience. You're here at the Earl Morgan Hour, and we're discussing a very hot topic tonight, what's going on in America. If you don't know, you're under a rock, you should move the rock.
Dead.
Now, this is very important, and I want us all to take this literally. If you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. If you don't like what's going on, I want you to take a moment and I want you to ask yourself, did I vote in the last election? Do I have something to say? Do I know who's running for office? If you don't like what's going on, vote for change. We left off with...
Yes, one, I wanted to get your views on community policing and the body cameras.
And I just want to point out to everyone, we have 10 minutes. I want us to use them wisely because we have so much information to get to you.
There is an important reform movement to try to create video documentation of every encounter with the police in the United States. And in the long term is actually a very, very wise thing to do. We have, when I was part of the team of lawyers that brought the lawsuits against the NYPD for stop and frisk, we stood for hours with people with Cincinnati who talked about those very same issues and how it helped in that particular city. In the long term, yes. But there's a saying in Puerto Rico, I want you to translate this for you all. The saying in Puerto Rico is, no es la flecha, es el indio. It's not the arrow, it's the Indian that shoots the arrow.
That's right.
It's not the technology that's going to fix this problem. It's the retraining of police. The fact that somebody's going to record an encounter doesn't stop the police from targeting individuals who are black and brown for the encounters to begin with.
So
let's start there with retraining about how police encounter people before we think that the camera's going to solve all the problems.
Mayor de Blasio of New York said that he's implementing a 3-day training program of the entire police force. Please give us your comments on that.
By all means, it has to happen.
Is 3 days enough?
Well, as long as it reaches all, by the way, 3 days is probably not enough for a police force that's 35,000 strong,
yeah.
The largest in the whole country. That's probably not enough. But the point is that at this point in time, we have to teach our members, brothers and sisters in the police force, how to de-escalate tension.
Yes,
everything that we
exactly.
saw in that video
Yeah.
was contrary to everything we learned about conflict resolution.
That's
right.
right. That's
You
right.
got to de-escalate. Why is it necessary for any police officer to think that they have to prove who they are, manhood and
They're
otherwise,
macho.
to take over a situation when
Scared.
de-escalation would have worked easily
Yes.
and a man would have been alive?
Did you
today?
see
Yes.
this video about the guy that got killed? The police had to shoot, or did shoot, in a case of a guy that went into a synagogue and stabbed a man in the head. That was almost textbook the way you do it right. I mean, he actually at one point holstered his gun and didn't bring it back out till he saw a threat. And then he had to shoot.
7 minutes.
Oh, Earl, you remember we talked to some of the young recruits about how they need to react to people in the community. But they need to do that on a much larger
And
scale.
they need to do it often.
And they need to do it often.
You know, there was a time when most of us grew up when the policeman was considered our friend.
The good guy.
And that is, and as a matter of fact, we look for that today. I know we do, because we want collaborations, and I think that's the word that I'd like to hear used. We want collaborations. We want to know that we're in it together. And as Senator Cunningham said, and I'm going to be as brief as possible, but if you know who it is, remember we went down to West District. We know him.
Yes,
He
but the
comes down to
commander-
have
when
coffee.
you say him, you're talking about the commander. of the
That's right,
district.
Captain Kelly. They come down to have coffee. They get to know us. I heard an officer say, "I know your mother doesn't want you out here. Go home." That means
I
he
got that
knows
when I
her
was a kid.
mother.
Right.
He knows the child's mother, and I think that's what we're looking for, not occupationalists,
That's right.
but people who are vested in our
That's right.
community as we are, because that way you get the necessary information from the people who also
Right.
don't want you behaving that way. With that said, please, the floor is yours.
Right.
The only thing I say is that I just hope citizens get involved with organizations that are in the community that exist, and whether it be the National Action Network, NAACP, groups like the Jersey City Anti-Violence Coalition Movement. Join a group.
Urban concerns.
Is
Urban
that
Concerns.
yours? Is that yours?
No, I'm a board member for
Okay.
Jersey City Anti-Violence.
Because
but-
we have actually 2 minutes. So
Okay.
tell us what you're doing, when you're doing it. And
It's-
what do
it's
you
Fri-
need?
What I need is people. Friday, we want people to stand up. Black Lives Matter. Respect matters. Come out at the hub.
What time?
6 p.m. Candlelight Vigil, and let's just show some unity.
Senator, what will you say to us?
Well, I would say that I agree. We need to work together. We need to understand that we are all in this together. That's important. And I think for citizens, you have elected officials. They're here to be used. If you need information, you need to be able to go to them and get that information. A wise elected official once told me, you have to hold your feet to the fire. And that's what works. And that's the same thing we have to do with our police department. That's the same thing we have to do with everybody else in the city. Hold the elected officials, hold the public servants, as they're called, their feet to the fire, and let's work together to resolve some of these issues.
You know, when you have an encounter between a young black man who has seen everything that's going on before him and knows the centuries of racism, who refuses to cooperate, and then you have that encounter with a public servant that we pay for,
Right.
who should be big enough to de-escalate. We expect the young man with the badge and the gun to de-escalate, because there is a reason why we pay these individuals to be trained correctly. They have to be trained correctly to deal with our population. If our population is frustrated because of what they see every day in the streets, because they don't have jobs, because of poverty, because of everything in their communities, we have to recognize that that is a feeding ground to what their reaction
To
is.
anger.
Not necessarily that they're going to take somebody down with a badge, but because they're frustrated. Eric Garner said, "This stops today."
Exactly.
This stops today, because he was harassed so many times.
Yeah.
That's visceral. That's
Yeah.
emotional.
I want to ask a question about Eric Garner. They said he was selling loose cigarettes, but nobody's ever actually proven that's what he was doing.
Thank you.
You know, we don't know that that's what he was actually doing.
But is that worth
But
him
to
losing his
die,
life
to
for?
That's just the
die,
point.
If it's true.
Yeah, even if
And
it's
Alex,
true.
right.
If it's
Even
true.
if it's true. That's
If
A
it's
loose
true.
cigarette?
Is that worth
To
losing
die.
his life?
We'll have a
Exactly.
We'll have a bunch of stores on King Drive and Ocean Drive that need to be. that
Well,
need to be looked into.
I can't think of a store that sells cigarettes on King
I
Drive.
can think of a lot
They
of
wouldn't be sure. All right, I think we're just about done here.
I want to point out one thing. I'm a Superior Court mediator, and the one thing that I don't hear often enough is that we're training people on how to use tactics that will de-escalate with their mouth as opposed to a gun, learning how to talk. And one more thing, and I'm going to let it go to the audience that's here. What about the simple act that people are afraid? That word I don't
They
hear.
are afraid.
People are running because they're afraid.
Well, I'm going to close this show with a bit of information about our city. In Lafayette section of Jersey City,
90 seconds.
there are 2 cops operating down there. The people down there like them so much that they come out of the stores to shake their hands.
Right.
And
That's what
you know the ones
that's
I'm
it.
talking about.
Yes.
And they're so good at this. I asked them, I was staring at them the other day, and I said, you guys ought to open a school or something.
Yes.
To teach. And one of the cops said, nobody wants to listen to us. But they show you, and they get out of their car and they walk. That's community police.
60 seconds.
All right, we're just about out. We've got about a minute or less than a minute. I hope you've taken something away. I hope we've given everybody some information and some food for thought. Thank you, Nathaniel, who was on the phone with us from National Action Network. And Saturday, December 13th, buses will leave from Harlem, Brooklyn, and Queens.
And Hoboken and Jersey City.
Right. There is no cost to ride the NACP bus. You need to reserve your seat now by filling out the attached form or emailing NYSNAACP@AOL.com.
And don't forget the National Action Network has buses leaving from the Jersey City hub.
10
I think
seconds.
they are $54. Also, let's remember Bruce Austin has a visual Friday at 6 p.m.
At the hub.
At the hub. Come out. Remember, police officers are part of us. We pay them. Everyone we're talking about is a public service. Do your job and vote.
All right, thank you very much. And until next week, the Earl Morgan Hour is over.
All right.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.